What are you doing?
I'm planting. I'm planting the seeds.
Everyone likes a beautiful and bountiful garden. But there's one thing missing in your garden that would make you the talk of the block. A beautiful and functional compost bin for your active garden. My grandmother always had a bucket under her sink where she would rake the leftover fruits and veggies. Then, every day, she would take it out to a pile where she put all the grass clippings, sawdust, and so much more. It was unsightly, but it was such an important part of why she had such an amazing garden. We grow a large garden, so we need a significant amount of compost. Compost can be as much as $50 for a 35-pound bag in our area, so buying it really isn't an option. So we decided to build our own, much more sightly compost bin. For this build, we will use rough sawn 4x4 cedar posts and cedar fence slats. We opted for the cedar fence slats because they were far cheaper than buying 1x cedar planks. We use cedar because it is a healthy option when compared to treated lumber, and it avoids decay and does not attract bugs. The compost bin comprises of 2 sections divided by a removable wall. I start by placing 2 posts on the ground 4 feet apart. I use a couple of 2x4s to keep the posts off the ground. Then I use a square to keep each slat perpendicular to the post while it's being fastened. Once the first slat is attached, use a spacer to keep an even distance between the slats. We are going to use a 2-inch gap because that is the thickness of the square that we are using. However, any distance will work as long as there is a gap. Airflow is important for your compost bin. Only the front and side walls have air gaps. The rear wall does not have any gaps, as it will be directly against the house. We build 2 sections of wall on 1 pair of posts, and then cut them apart in the middle. After the walls are prepared, level out the soil and dig post holes. Use a square to ensure that the holes are aligned properly, and a tape measure to ensure that they are the correct distance from one another. Here I use a 2x4 cut to the same length that I want the wall. This is another great option for ensuring that the post holes are aligned and also offers support to the front wall when trying to level it up. Attach the door side supports before putting the front walls in place. A 4x4 post needs about a ½ inch between the door and the post to properly swing open and shut. Use a spacer to ensure a uniform distance. Here I am using a ½ inch thick piece of scrap. Do this for both front wall assemblies. Add or subtract soil from the post holes so that the wall is as close to level and plumb as possible. This process is time consuming, but it will save lots of problems in the latter end of the project. Once the wall is in place, attach a brace with a couple of screws. Attach slats between the front and rear walls with the same 2-inch gap that you used for the front wall. For aesthetic purposes, you can attach vertical slats on the corners, and then cut them flush with the top of the compost bin. The doors have not been cut away from the front wall yet, but I like to install the hardware ahead of time. Doing this gives me an exact fit without having to fight a heavy door. Next, add a 4x4 post frame to the top of the compost bin for additional strength and stability. Here I'm using ½ inch dowels as loose tenons. Each piece will be glued in place and fastened with additional screws. Now cut the doors free from the posts after most of the top frame is in place. Remove each door and add a diagonal brace. For this purpose, I chose to use a 2x4 to ensure proper fit before cutting the expensive cedar. I could not do this part without my little helper making another appearance. Thank goodness he showed up just in time. Some may have noticed that I'm not using any power saws for this job. I find that unless I need pinpoint accuracy for multiple repeated cuts, the power saw is far too much of a hassle to set up and tear down when I only have a few hours to work each evening. In this case, a handsaw gets the job done just fine. Now that the diagonal support is secured to the outside, adding some additional screws to the face side doesn't hurt. I finished the top frame by adding the sides, a long support beam in the back, and a long support beam in the front. This gives more rigidity to the front and supports the heavy doors when they open and close. After everything is assembled, check that your doors open and close smoothly and start composting. If you want to build your own compost bin, check out the links below where you can find detailed plans for this and many other projects. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Thanks for stopping by. From our creative maple family to yours, happy composting.